In Paris, violent clashes erupted between police and protesters for the third straight weekend. The clashes began near the Arc de Triomphe early on Saturday and continued into the night between police and protesters known as Yellow Jackets for their bright clothes. For more on the riot, CBS News correspondent Elaine Cobb joins us now by phone in Paris. Elaine, what's driving the forces behind these protests?
Rena, it started with a new tax on gasoline, and the French said, look, this is enough. Gas has already gone up this year. We can't afford more. But it has become much more. It's become a general discontent with what is seen as continuing rising taxes, which are making the cost of living just very high. They feel their wages are not keeping track with these rises in taxes, and their salaries are just not following.
Elaine, these images are incredible. We're seeing right now a car turned upside down, just engulfed in flames. Describe what the sense is there in Paris right now.
Well, it started with something of a divided protest, in fact, because anyone who wanted to protest on the Champs-Élysées had to go through police cordons, had to subject to stringent searches, and there were a little over 1,000 on the Champs-Élysées doing that. But many others decided, no, I don't want to, and were very early in the morning at the Arc de Triomphe, and where there were violent clashes from very early on. There were running riots with the police. They were picking up barricades and throwing them at police vans. The police were moving to try to keep them away. They were using tear gas all day long. The sound of tear gas canisters could be heard across the city, I have to tell you, particularly when the protesters were moving in small groups across the city. And some of them climbed up onto the top of the Arc de Triomphe and even graffitied there in favor of their Yellow Vest movement. That's something that has drawn a lot of criticism. But the numbers were not very big. But what they did this time was they very much moved across the city in small groups. I passed a burnt-out bank. It was completely destroyed. There were cars burnt, and there were metal barricades that had been piled up in the middle of roads to disrupt traffic. There are quite a number of roadworks on across the city, and many of those who wanted to cause violence were clearly using them for materials.
It looks like a war zone in Paris. We know French President Emmanuel Macron is in Buenos Aires for the G20. Has the French government issued any sort of response to the violence?
Well, Macron has, in fact, just been asked about it in Buenos Aires, and he said, these people clearly want chaos, but we will never accept violence. And he said they'll be found and prosecuted. He complained that the violence has nothing to do with the peaceful expression of legitimate anger. The government has also said it's clear that while there were some who went to protest peacefully, many people turned up just to cause violence, and they say they will be caught. But it must be noted that the protesters say they're not ready to stop. They're not ready to give in just yet, and the government isn't ready to give in to their demands. So this looks set to continue.
Elaine Cobb, coming to us from Paris. Elaine, thank you for that report.